So up until now, we've been building apps, and we will help people set up a database and connect to that database. But lots of times there are questions about saving data and where to put that data and how to share that information. So we built Access program, which I know many people are experienced with, and then they'll know where to put the information in the database. So the Power App, we'll start by sharing the app. You can share it to anyone. But the problem has been, what about the database? Who has authority to access the database, etc.? So we found a way to, we found a solution to that problem. We found a way that we were able to make our own database without having to request permission from the IT department. So that's no longer a necessary step. We've set up our own database that we are able to share to anybody in the company who also has that database. So we were trying to make a solution with using Microsoft, and that's when we came up with the CDS. So there's two concepts that I want to go over. The first one being environments. So we'll be able to set up different environments. And then the second one, each environment only has one CDS database. So the first, basically you'd be able to decide who has the power to share the information. And then in the other situation with entity than most databases. Databases require you to put some of your own creativity into it, access the data, and it's whatever the user decides. Great. So in the example of sharing the information company-wide, so essentially it'll be one account that everyone accesses. So in this example, it's IT Impact. It would be an email account that they would be able to use to access the environment. And people don't have to ask me as the leader for permission. They're just able to access it on their own. So I think most of the time it would be beneficial to use the company-wide environment. But it is password secure. So each environment it has a way that you can make up a database through CDS. So if you click on that, that will create a database automatically. So I'll click on it. And you'll have to do that first before you do anything with or start the Power App. Okay, so while you're creating the database, there will be a bunch of options that will come up. So there's probably about 50 different entities that you can set up. So they're kind of this, they sort of have, they're essentially like a chart. It's outlaid in a chart format. Okay, trying to find the right one to click on here. Just looking for the right one. I'm just going to go back and click on a different option. Just trying to find where it says Open Database. Okay, sorry about that. I just overlooked that. It must be in a different location. So I've just signed up to PA. So I'm signing in. Sometimes I get these error messages, which, I don't know, try to prevent me from signing in. I'm not really sure why that happens, but yeah, it looks like I was able to get in. So one confusing part of this that might be an issue is there's two sides. So there's admin.powerapps.com, and then there's just regular PowerApps.com. So there's two internet sites. So when you're setting up the environments and setting it all up, you have to go through the admin.powerapps site. And then once it's set up, the regular site you'll use from then on, you can even make modifications. It's just through the regular PowerApps.com. So if I click here on entities, actually one other thing I want to mention that's quite important is you'll notice with your particular environment that there's two environments. And if you switch to the other environment, it is a different database. So you'll just have to make sure each time you log in that you click on the correct environment. So now you can see here there's different entities listed. So perhaps you won't use all of them. But you know what? They're all there and built in anyway, whether you use them or not. So it's sort of part of the way that Microsoft is set up, that they want to essentially encourage everybody to use as many entities as possible. So they just want basically the same information, there, like there'll be names, phone numbers, etc., and you can incorporate as much as you want into your environment. So I clicked on Contact Entity, and now there's a different list of people. So depending on the situation, you might have business contacts, you might have individual contacts. So depending on the situation, you may find some of those useful. You don't have to recreate the chart every time. It'll always just be there for you. So the other reason why we already have these created is down the road, once people get used to using it, they might find out that they might notice that, I don't know, for example, that they don't have a space for a Facebook account. So there'll be a column that can easily be added. So, and then when Microsoft comes out with a new version, that extra column could be added. And then all of the CDSs will be able to have that extra column automatically there and ready for use. Unfortunately, if in the situation that you don't want to have that extra column, there's nothing you can really do about it. Regardless, the column will be there if like a new version comes out with something new like that. So if that really bothers you and you don't like that, you do have options to create your own entity and set it up as you like it. So, and then in that case, if you were to create your own entity, Microsoft doesn't have any control over modifying it at all. So you would have full control over what your entity looks like. So if they came out with a version and added a column, it wouldn't affect your entity since you created it on your own. So I'm going to click here on Add New Entity. So this is contacts the way that I like to see it. So I can set up my own preferences, what columns I want to use. So it's nice and clear and concise. I don't have a program name there. I don't need to leave things blank if I don't want to. I can put in a name, so I can have the program name and then maybe like a friendly name or a screen name instead of the program name coming up. Okay, so you'll notice that when you create a new entity, all the columns are already there for you, so I can't delete any of them. So I'm just going to narrow it down to a few columns. So I'm going to click on Add Field. So the cool thing about CDS is that there's different databases to choose from. So there's an image there, there's a place to put a phone number and a name, or you can select to view it by list, which has the same, it looks the same as lookup. Has a lookup feature, pardon me. So you can select phone. So it's formatted, obviously, to accept different phone numbers. So yeah, so that's just a formatting thing. So you can essentially just create it however you want it to look like. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to ask, does anybody have any questions about anything I've said so far?
So if the one that comes with the common data service that comes with already has things like full name and phone number, then what would be the purpose of creating your own entity? Is it just to only show a couple fields?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So in this example that I was just giving you, like creating contacts my own way, let's say I didn't want Microsoft, that when they come out with a new version, that I didn't want that to impact and add extra fields that I didn't want. Then I would be able to create my own entity. Like if I was to say sell my business, or if I wanted to, I don't know, share this information with a vendor or something like that, I just have full control and I'm able to create it however I want. and I can modify it however I want. And it's just not impacted by Microsoft when they do their updates of their different versions. So if I click here on contacts, and I add a new field, so there are some columns already there, and then you have options to add your own columns. But if you don't create your own, then there's the potential for Microsoft adding columns that you potentially don't want or don't like, but there's nothing you can do about it because you're kind of at their control in a way. You're kind of stuck seeing in those columns when they come out with new versions. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine them adding on fields, but if people are looking at the app, um, I wouldn't think that the fields would automatically be added to whatever app you're creating. Um,
No, it wouldn't. The apps already really have it, and the apps don't show the fields. You're right. So meaning you'd have to add columns or fields yourself into the actual app. Yeah.
right. Okay.
Okay. Great, but that was a great question. So thanks for asking that. Yeah, and I suspect most people will opt to just use the Microsoft created or entity. But let me just, I'm just gonna show. Okay, yeah. So no one has created an inventory in this situation. So if you wanted, you could create your own inventory. You could name it something like this. So now you can list products, but you might want to change some of the headings. See what we have here. So there's a list of different categories of products, which is different from perhaps your own inventory, depending on your business and what you sell. So you could make your own inventory that reflects. So you could call it an inventory entity, which would reflect the products that you sell. Okay. Are there any other questions at this point before I continue? Okay, I'm going to move on then. So once you have the CDS set up, you can then start creating the app. Oh, actually, I'm just going to pause. It looks like Sandy had a question here. She said, once you already create your fields in the entity, let's just check here. So the answer is no, you can't modify any of the columns. Um, so if you decide to go ahead and use the already created Microsoft fields, you're not able to modify them, no. So in this situation, if you wanted to add some kind of special name or something, you'd have to go ahead and create your own entity with your own products and insert that name that you'd like. Okay. So let's go ahead now and create the app. So I'm just going to click on App. Sorry, pardon me. I'm going to go and click on Home, and then I click on Create New App. So you'll notice another web screen has come up. Sorry, I just got a bit distracted. It looked different than I was expecting it to. So we click on Create. So create PowerApp. So there's 3 websites to remember: the admin one, the regular PowerApp one, and then create.powerapp. So this is where you can create and do all your modifications on your app. Once the app's made, you will still continue to go to create.powerapp in order to change anything you want to change. Or you can use the PowerApp program. Like you can actually, if you want to, opt to download the PowerApp program into your computer and use it that way. Personally, I like just being able to go to the internet link, but that's a personal preference. You can decide what you would like. So at the top, on the top left part of the screen here, so it's Data Services, and then so I selected Database. I'm just seeing if it's going to work for us. So that's not correct. I'm going to log out and sign back in. Sometimes that's necessary. I've had this happen before, so let me just try logging out or signing out. Okay, so I'm going to click on Work Account, sign back in. Okay, so I'm going to go back and try to create an app again. So I'm going to click on Phone Layout. And now there's different entities to choose from. So you'll already have known which one you created. So you'll just pick one entity, whichever one you want to use. I think it looks a bit strange. I like to use more than one, but for now we're just going to use one. So I'll just pick Contacts. So I've selected that. So Create App. So because CDS has already created this, you don't have, it basically makes it more user-friendly. So everything's already incorporated and ready to go for you. So you can just modify anything you want to modify. And if you want to add more columns, you do have to go back into the PowerApps section. Just going to show it to you here. Right here, this is where you can do any modifications. So like I said, there's the 3 different websites, right? There's the admin PowerApps, and they all have their different functions. So I'll just show you a field here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a field. So you click Save, New Field. And then it's not actually showing on the app yet, so you have to actually go back to the app screen and you have to click Refresh in order for it to show the new column. So we'll click on Create App. Now I'm just looking for the database. It used to have a refresh button when I've used it before. So if you click on the 3 dots, then it used to be refresh. It's not there now. So perhaps it automatically refreshes, it seems. Just going to look a little closer here. Okay, there it is. So there's refresh. And there's that error message again. Okay. So I've clicked refresh, and you can see here the new field that I created, and all that, the app, and it's showing on the app. So that's great. Any questions about that? All right. Just going to share a little bit more here. We're going to talk about share a little bit more. So we're going to go back to the admin portion into the environment, and we're going to talk a bit about creative roles. So the person who essentially has authority to give out access and share access to anyone that they would want to in the department. Pardon me. And so they would send out permissions to the app and to the database. And the other benefit with using CDS is that the permissions are all managed within the same web page. So even though if there is multiple databases, it's all managed in one spot. So let's say, for example, you have a very high security database, and you don't want to allow access to people, but maybe you want to allow access just to one person for a brief period of time to look it over, just to read only but not modify it. You can use CDS for that. So you can use it so that they can only see what's there and not actually change anything or input anything into the environment. So the person would just be able to see the information only. So that is an example of where the permission allowed would be quite limited. You can also use what's called flows. Sorry, just a second. So there's also flows, which can move data from FPL to CDS. And perhaps we'll get into that a bit more on the next presentation. Now, another situation I wanted to mention is I know that in Access, we usually like to be able to switch back and forth between designs and insert data as we do that. And in CDS, it's a little bit different. There's some restrictions. So instead of using Excel, here, I'll show you what it looks like, because we use Excel instead. So if you click on Open Excel, there's going to be a drop-down box under Excel, and then, okay, so open. So it will incorporate the app. You'll see that on the right-hand side. Yeah, and it looks like there's a bit of an error here again with the account, so I have to sign out and sign back in again. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, that could be the reason why I'm having so many errors. I think the account just is unable to be updated, I guess. Let me just try this way. So I'm going to use App Office. So if you see that drop-down box, you'll see PowerApp is listed with admin. And that will allow you to modify the data directly through Excel. I'll show you what I mean. You can click Add. Okay, so I'm going to enlarge the window. Just a moment. Sorry, so it looks like it won't open, so I'm going to just start again here. Not sure what it's doing here. Okay, there we go. That's why. Looks like we're stuck for some reason. I'm not sure why. So now this is the third time here. I'll try to confirm. Okay, so the window's opened up here. Hopefully it works this time. Okay, so sign in. I think I can almost hear my computer smoking away, working overtime. It's really having a tough time, but I got faith in it. Let's see here. Before the demo, it's funny. I, obviously tested it out before the conference call today, and it worked great. And then now, of course, it's glitching on me. It's Murphy's Law. Just going to try something else here. So what should actually happen is on the right, you should be able to see different options, which will be save, download, trash, etc. And then all the data would be on the left-hand side. So you could click save, and then that data would then be uploaded and saved into the CDS. That's what it should actually look like. Just going to try it one more time. Yeah, it'll just look like it doesn't want to do it, and I apologize for not being able to show you, but I'm sure you get the idea. I'm confident it'll be successful for you. On the right, like I say, there'll be different options that you can click save, and you are able to modify the data. And if you haven't set up the app yet, then you would be able to insert all the data through the admin.PowerApps. And then after it's been set up, this would be available to you to modify it through Excel. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, great. All right, well, that's it for the presentation. And really that is just touching the surface of CDS so that you just kind of get an idea of what it looks like. And then obviously as you get a chance to play around with it yourself, you'll be able to see the benefits that it would have. So SharePoint isn't always a good fit, and so this is a secondary option using CDS instead of SharePoint. So the plan, so if you were pulling data from different databases, we've been able to plan for that. So that's something that you'd be able to do with this software. So thanks so much for your time, everyone, and I hope you all have a great day.